Welkom Noelle.
Yeah. So good morning, everybody. So I'm another baby care competitor. So it feels like you put all the baby care vendors, or not vendors, manufacturers kind of in the first hour. So please don't ask me any questions about the flushability of our Johnson's baby wipes. I'm not going to answer that question. I am Noelle. I head the baby care EMEA Insights department. As you probably can tell from my accent, from my lovely accent, I'm actually Dutch, so this is actually my home turf. So I'm originally from the Netherlands, but I'm based out of London. And please, in the next 2 days, please don't ask me any questions about Brexit, because that's really given me a lot of headaches in the last 2 years. So before we deep dive, because my topic is about, how can you kind of create an actionable consumer targeting strategy in kind of 3 simple steps. So this is what we have done in J&J EMEA Baby. And before we deep dive, I just want to ask you guys a few questions. So let's, and I'm looking now at the IT department. Oh, okay, good. So can everybody just bring out their mobile phones? So I hope you don't have any big roaming charges by doing this, but then you can blame it on me. So if you bring out your mobile phones, please go to your browser and type in Kahoot, kahoot.it. So you see how to spell it there, kahoot.it. And then type in the game pin that you can see on the top of the slide. And then you can also come up with a very fancy, I think you can come up with a very fancy nickname as well. Good, so I see already a lot of people joining. Lord Vader, I don't know who's Lord Vader here, but it sounds really interesting. Good, Dutchie, like that name. So there's already 40 players. So just let's give it a few more. I think your boss won't be really happy with all the roaming charges, but just blame it on me. So, wow, I didn't even know there were so many attendants. We're already at 66. It's going. I have to, oh, you can even see the nice, you can hear the nice sound as well. Good, I should have thought about this a bit better, because this is going to take a long time for everybody to join. So already at 80 players. 81. Wipe 3. That's probably the person who asked the flushability wipe question. Good, so do we want to give it a few more minutes? Or shall we move on? Yeah, okay, let's move on. So let's start. Oh, please stay. Yes. So there's 2 simple questions that I want to ask you guys, the audience. I just want to get a better feel of, do you have any kind of consumer segmentations in your business? And how are you currently using it? What kind of impact does it drive? So just let's ask start with the first question. So in your business, do you segment your consumers into different groups to enable kind of precision targeting? And then on your screen, on your mobile screen, I think you can choose out of these 4 kind of answers and boxes. Good. Oh, that goes quick. At least it goes a bit quicker. Well, I shouldn't put it at 60 minutes. This goes really slow. Good, so we're getting in more answers. I think we need a bit of entertainment for the meantime. Okay, a few seconds left. I'm very curious about the results. Oh, good, very good. So the majority of you actually say we use kind of a hybrid model or targeting model. And I see then secondly, a lot of people use actually, they kind of segment their consumers based on demographics and a smaller part on attitudes. Okay, very interesting. So then let's go to the next question. So this is the last one. Oh. You know what, maybe we go directly to the slides because this is not really functioning very well. Good, but at least I have a feel of what kind of segmentations you currently use in your business. So let's go to the, here's actually the next one. So, okay. So my talk actually consists of 3 parts. So the first one, I just want to give you a little bit the context and kind of the business challenges we are facing as J&J EMEA Baby. And then I want to deep dive and spend the majority of my time on the approach we took. So what did we do differently in order to kind of enable a more actionable kind of targeting strategy and segmentation? And then lastly, a few final thoughts in terms of how did we drive adoption within the business? And how did we really guarantee kind of the impact? How did we drive kind of impact globally? So the first one, so we had actually 2 key challenges at Johnson's Baby. So the first one, our baby care kind of portfolio has kind of significantly expanded. I mean, probably most of you know kind of Johnson's Baby. And it has kind of a clear global footprint, but we have like 8 to 9 brands in our baby portfolio globally. And some of them have more kind of a regional, kind of a local focus. But we weren't really clear in terms of, we lacked kind of a clear understanding of what is the role, what role does each brand play in the portfolio? What are kind of our core kind of consumer targets or parents or moms we need to focus on in order to, with all of our brands, in order to really reach our consumers in the most efficient and effective ways. And what are those kind of white space or kind of growth opportunities that we can identify in our kind of top global baby markets? And then the second challenge is we had already a segmentation in place, like most of you guys. So in our cases, we had kind of an attitudinal consumer segmentation. And I saw that was kind of I cannot remember the number, like 12% of the audience of you guys said, oh, we also have an attitudinal consumer segmentation. We had the same. But it wasn't really used by the business, and it wasn't really very actionable. Because we know that, we saw in the data that kind of attitudes alone, they're not really explaining and they're not really kind of predictive of our kind of consumer behaviors, of our baby care behaviors and of brand choice. So it wasn't very kind of a useful type of segmenting the markets. And also, I don't know if you're familiar, some of you will also have this kind of attitudinal segmentation. You have all these fancy names, like we had like the baby bonders, but how do you really reach those baby bonders? How do you find them in markets? So it's very difficult then to really develop or activate kind of specific activities for that group of consumers or parents. So those were actually kind of our 2 key challenges. So we had to do something very differently in order to create kind of a more actionable kind of segmentation and targeting strategy that then would enable that would kind of underpin all of our brand building efforts, as well as help to guide kind of our portfolio brand strategies. So as what I said before, we know from nowadays from a lot of kind of research and psychology that attitudes are often not dictating or predicting kind of brand choices or purchase behavioral kind of differences. And I also saw a lot of you guys also use kind of more kind of a demographic segmentation. We initially had the same in baby care. So we also kind of segmented initially the market by the age and stage of the baby. but it wasn't really useful either because, as you can imagine, those demographics are quite broad, and it doesn't really enable kind of targeting specifically of your kind of digital efforts. So we had to do something different. And basically, this is based on what we know kind of behavioral sciences. So we know kind of that past behavior is 3 times much more predictive than kind of claimed intention or attitudes alone. And so this was kind of the premise and the starting point of our kind of targeting model. Then let's deep dive. So what was the kind of approach we took? And it was kind of 3 very simple steps. So first of all, we started kind of with the how. So within baby care, toiletries, we started to get an understanding, okay, what do parents predominantly buy and use? Can we really spot those kind of cross-purchasing patterns? And how can we kind of identify kind of natural partitions within the marketplace? To really group those kind of baby care consumers into certain early kind of buying groups. And we explored a lot of what we call more behavioral kind of data sources. So we used kind of household panel data. We also used kind of a lot of online data. So we had a lot of understanding on how people or parents kind of search and what they predominantly kind of buy online. And we also mined some of our kind of existing UNAs as well to get kind of some early hypotheses and starting points. And the second step, and this is actually the most important part, I think this is really where the magic lies in the model, is really unpacking and investigating the whys behind those kind of behavioral differences that we identified. So what actually are those what we call like behavioral factors that then kind of drives or explains or predicts kind of your buying behaviors. So that was actually the starting point, and I think that really allows you to then create kind of actionable brand strategies that then are grounded very clearly in kind of behavioral or predictive type of category behavior. And then the last step, and once you're kind of very clear on the why, then it makes it much easier. That kind of informs then your final consumer segments and targets. And we did a lot of additional like profiling studies to really get a more holistic and 360 understandings of kind of our core consumer groups, which has kind of underpinned all of our current brand building efforts. So let me just deep dive on each of those different steps just to give a bit more details and to hopefully bring it to life. So as said before, our first step was really to map out the market from kind of a behavioral standpoint. So looking at what parents and moms kind of predominantly buy, and we were able to identify kind of these core themes. So this is a US example, but we saw a lot of consistency across different markets globally. And you can see that there is a group of parents that kind of predominantly buy within a certain price bracket. So you have parents that kind of predominantly buy within private label or mass, or moms or parents who are more buying into kind of premium brands. And then the premium market, we saw also different type of behavior. So you see that some people are more looking for natural solutions, and other people are looking a bit more for skincare, kind of therapeutic or scientific type of products. So that's what some of the early themes we kind of identified. And then as a second step, and again, as what I was saying before, this is kind of the most important part, is we were kind of unpacking the why. So what is driving then those different themes? What is driving parents' kind of brand choices? And so we did that on the basis of a lot of kind of our own kind of existing category knowledge, our own kind of data. And we were able to identify what we call these 5 type of behavioral variables or drivers, which we kind of further confirmed in kind of a drivers analysis and doing some further work and studies. And you can see that 5 2 out of the 5 drivers, they actually also focus on demographics. So we saw that the experience level of the parents, so whether you're a first-time mom or you are a bit more of an experienced parent, also the age of your babies and kids, that kind of explains your brand choices and your purchase behaviors. And also alongside income, and then we also had a chat together, there's also kind of more motivational or emotional kind of factors like to what extent are you really engaged with kind of the experiential kind of care ritual as a parent. So I think this was really the most important part, because once we were really clear in terms of the why and what are those most important drivers that kind of explains people's choices, that resulted then in a very kind of actionable targeting model. And that's kind of the next step. So, I mean, obviously the name in this slide is kind of masked for confidentiality reasons. But you see that those 5, the kind of our targeting framework is built around these 5 behavioral factors. And that gives kind of each segment or each consumer target very distinctive kind of characteristics. So we now know, for instance, an Avino baby mom or a kind of very premium mom or parent, she would probably be more like a first-time mom. She would probably have a baby that is less than 12 months old. She would probably fall more kind of in the higher income brackets. She would also probably be much more engaged kind of and looking with kind of the experiential personal care kind of ritual. So that has then culminated into our final kind of targeting framework, which gave kind of clear consumer targets. So we identified clear consumer targets for each of our brands in our baby care portfolio. So then I just want to spend the last few minutes on how did we then drove adoption across the entire kind of end-to-end kind of organization, and what was the impact we actually had and drove. So we first actually, I don't have to tell you because you're all kind of very experienced inside professionals, but we first kind of run a pilot in the US, and we had a kind of a very strong use case. And that made it much easier to then drive adoption in all of our other global baby markets. So in the end of the day, we adopted this framework in 6 of our top baby markets. And then I think what is most important, we also conducted and we ran with all of our local teams kind of full-day immersion and activation workshops. So we really brought kind of the segments and our targets to life. We had a lot of kind of inspirational material. We did a lot of kind of immersive exercises with them. Of course, we took them shopping with those consumers, as well as took them in homes with those consumers. And that has kind of underpinned all of our brand building efforts. So it has a kind of informed kind of our global portfolio strategy, as well as all of our innovation upstream, our go-to-market plans, and then, most importantly, kind of all of our media and digital kind of targeting and efforts. Then I have one final thought, because I really wanted to put this slide in the last slide, because this is kind of a message we drove within Johnson & Johnson, but I see a lot in the industry. There's a lot of buzz nowadays on targeting and micro-targeting. And of course, the segmentation was really kind of useful and really allowed us to kind of, in a very efficient and effective way, to reach those different targets, and also by playing with kind of our house of brands. But then there's a lot of discussion nowadays, like what marketing is most effective. Is it mass marketing versus targeted? versus a more kind of targeted approach. And I really want to give the message, and this is also the message we gave within Johnson & Johnson. It's very important kind of you have a balanced kind of approach. There's a really interesting article that I also, from the brand gym. And yeah, so it's really important you have both, because we know that nearly 50% of all of the consumer buying decisions are made in the aware stage. So yeah, so most people or most consumers, they have made up already, they have already some early ideas of what brands they want to buy based on their long-term awareness. So it's really important you also focus on mass marketing and, and those kind of traditional, more brand building efforts. So having a balanced approach is in the end of the day, I think, the most effective way. Good, so that's it. I hope it was clear.
Very clear.